Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Unmuted. Getting started. Good evening. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Felicia Franklin. I am your host, your moderator for Unmuted, the episode number 5. Okay, keep me together. Let's get started. Tonight's topic is, as you can see scrolling across the screen, is all alone in a crowded room. Just me and my thoughts. So about that, being alone. Alone is being separated, or being separated from others, being isolated. Loneliness alters how your brain represents relationships, or making you feel more disconnected from others than what you actually are. Hey, Lashana, thank you for tuning in. And that's loneliness. It makes you feel disconnected. It makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel that you have no one, and you can be in a room full of people and you can still feel alone. You can be stuck in your thoughts. You can look one way on the outside, but on the inside, you're completely a different person. And that's that's caused by loneliness. That's loneliness. Some of the causes of loneliness is attributed to a lot of internal factors. Now, these are some things that, a lot of people don't really want to talk about. It makes you feel down, and it's not really a popular topic. Some of the things that we talk about on Unmuted, however, they're necessary, they're needed. Loneliness is attributed to low self-esteem. It's also attributed to a lack of confidence, or feeling unworthy, believing that you're not worthy. You're not worthy of the attention of others. You're not worthy of other people's regard. It leads you to a form of more loneliness, and even chronic loneliness. Now, doing some research on this topic, I really didn't know there was a thing of chronic loneliness. But it is. It is being in such a place that you feel like you cannot come out of. It is borderline depression. It leads to depression. It leads to oppression in your mind. Some of it is attributed to a form of anxiety, but it's being stuck in a place that you feel that you can't come out of, regardless of the people that you have around you. But you have so many things that are going on the inside that you feel like maybe you're not worthy of someone's love. Maybe you're not worthy of someone's time. It is also caused by the lack of. I did a study on love and loss. And I was very shocked at some of the things that I found out in that. Some people, they go through relationships. You can be in a relationship. You can be in a 20-year marriage and still feel lonely. Loneliness is not necessarily just a person that's single, or just a person that maybe is a widowed or a widower. You can be in a full relationship, a marriage with a family, spouse and children, and feel lonely. The situations that cause you to be bound can cause you to feel lonely. You can feel that you don't have anyone really to talk to, even in that relationship. That's caused. It's an underlying cause there that is caused by loneliness. Loneliness leads to other illnesses. It leads to other forms of anxieties and other disorders. Again, when I previously said I was doing a study on love and loss, and realized chronic loneliness is attributed to even with the pandemic. Right now, we're going through the pandemic, and I was reading that even with the pandemic, people not being surrounded by coworkers. Now, one would think that working from home, oh, that's a great thing. You're enjoying that, but the numbers of loneliness that has been studied has increased because people feel more alone because they're working from home, even if you have your family there. But it's disrupting your normal schedule, your regular schedule. So where you would normally have an outlet to, even if you didn't talk to your coworkers, even if you didn't tell them what was going on with you, the fact that you were merely being around other people, being around the coworkers, getting out of your normal setting, getting out of your own head. When we're home, we tend to get locked in our own thoughts. We tend to get locked in the things that are going on around us, and what's associating us with what we're dealing with. But when you're on a day-to-day job or you're out and about, it tends to take your mind off of those things. They're not going away, but it's taking your mind off of those things. And I was looking over those things, and I thought about the people that are really going through right now. The people that are really going through because they've lost loved ones. They've lost loved ones due to COVID-19. They were already alone. They were confined in a home when we were really confined in a quarantine. We were being quarantined. And can you imagine losing a loved one during this time? That's really hard. That's something that some of us are not thinking about because we're surrounded by loved ones. We're surrounded by family members. We're surrounded. But what about that wife? It was just her and her husband, and she lost her husband, or he lost his wife, and the children are grown and the children are gone, and they're calling and checking on their parent, but they can't necessarily be around them because we're in this state of a pandemic. They're alone. They're trapped in their thoughts. They're lost in their thoughts. And it leads to other disorders, being in relationships and maybe not necessarily losing a loved one to death, but the loss of a relationship, separation. It causes loneliness. And when you're alone, you start thinking, okay, I should have done this. I could have done that. Or what could I have done to make this relationship a little bit better? Especially when the split was one-sided. One wants to hold on to the relationship and wants the relationship to thrive, wants it to grow, but the other wants to part ways. That's where we get into other forms of disorder, shall I say. That's when we start the oppression starts setting in, and that's when the depression starts setting in, and that's when the suicidal thoughts and maybe the suicidal tendencies start to really set in. The loss of a child, that's something really hard to come back from. I recently was reading where an 8-year-old was killed in the mall. That's a problem. We're thinking about, we're looking at it in the masses when we're reading it or we're listening to it on the news. But what about when the child has been buried? And what about when the parents are alone and they're going on day to day? People outside of the home, not saying that we've forgotten about it, but we're not thinking about it as much. But that parent can't get over that because they have to deal with that loss. The person that's going through that have to deal with that loss. And yes, Graydon, I think you're absolutely right. We as people need to care. We do need to care for people better. We do. There's no way around that, because once it's done, then we tend to forget about it, but that person is stuck with that. And what can we do? We do need to be better. And really, that's one thing about Unmuted. Being able to put those topics out there, being able to let them, to put it out there that we do care, that you're not the only one going through it. I'm not the only one that went through a situation in my life. Just because I went through it then, I still understand what it did to me, what place it put me in. I may be over it now, but someone may be going through the same thing now that I went through in the past. Well, how do we get over that? How do we help someone through that? By being mute, by being silent, that's not helping anyone. So being able to let someone else know that you can get past this, you can get through this, you can grow through what you go through. And that's one of the things that, I want to let you know. Loneliness, you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to be alone. It's something that we may all go through. We may feel like we're the only one going through it, but you're not alone. One of the other topics that I was reading on, and I was really attributed to loneliness, was children, especially in the teenage phase. So I can break that down and we can talk about it as children dealing with death, children dealing with divorce, two totally separate, different things. Oftentimes when adults go through a divorce and children are involved, a lot of the times the children feel like it was their fault. One of the parents may try to buy the child, get them everything that they want, thinking that that would compensate for the loss, but they never talk to the child. The child never goes through counseling. The parent may never go through counseling, and that becomes a problem. The child then isolates themselves. The child then starts to distance themselves from their family, distance themselves from their friends. And that leads to other things. That leads to drinking. That leads to drug use. That leads to, well, first it could lead to tobacco and use of any kind, drug use, alcohol use, whatnot. It leads to those things. You start seeing different patterns and different changes in their behavior. And even if there wasn't a divorce, even if there wasn't a death in the family, when there's a problem there, when you notice that your children or your teenagers are start to distance themselves, they're not that talkative, or they're not that, that outgoing personality type of person that they once were, there was a problem there. If they start secluding themselves, if they, get agitated by the least little thing, it's a problem there. Now, the problem in this day and age, it could be a multitude of things. It could be bullying. It could be peer pressures. It could be several different things, but it's something there. Sometimes family counseling is needed, one-on-one counseling for the parents, one-on-one counseling for the children, because at the same time the children are going through, the parents can be going through as well. Oftentimes the children are overlooked when they're going through certain things. So we want to make sure that we are being attentive when we're going through. We want to make sure we don't forget about our loved ones, the ones that are in the homes with us. If we go, I went through a divorce. When I went through my divorce, one thing that I was really adamant on was making sure that my son was okay, because it didn't just affect me; it affected him as well. I didn't just go through. I may have gone through differently than him, but he went through also. So I wanted to make sure that while I was trying to make sure that I was okay, I needed to make sure that he was okay as well. Another form of loneliness, and one of the attributes of going through loneliness, are different, and this can get a little sensitive, but different assaults, sexual abuse, sexual assault, molestation, child molestation, rape. All of those things can cause a person to isolate themselves. They can't. That's their way of coping. It's not a necessarily positive way of coping, but everyone has a different coping mechanism. So if you know that someone went through something, if you know someone was maybe abused as a child, and or they were abused, they were raped, or they were assaulted, that person is not necessarily even though they may seem like they're okay, that takes time to get over. So they start secluding themselves. They start isolating themselves. Sometimes people overindulge themselves in work. They don't think about it, but that's a problem. Sometimes people, they may isolate themselves. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to be around anyone. They don't want to deal with anyone. So they constantly work. They become a workaholic. That's a problem. They're trying to overlook that situation that they went through, but they're never getting it out. So in turn, they start holding it in. And just like a person can be an information hoarder, a person can be a hurt hoarder. They can hoard that hurt in the inside, and it can cause them to go through different levels of pain. You have the first, it starts with the isolation. Then it starts with the seclusion. They're secluding themselves. Then it tends to get deeper into the loneliness. Then they don't want to be around anyone. Then that's when the chronic illness and the chronic loneliness. Again, that was something that was new to me when I started doing this study. Chronic loneliness, really not wanting to be around anyone, making it their business to avoid at all costs, not wanting to be around family, locking themselves in rooms, not tending to children like they would normally tend to their children. See, that's a problem. They have an issue that they're not dealing with, and it's causing them to get deeper into that oppression that they're dealing with. They don't know how to get themselves out of that. They want help. They want someone to reach out to them. They just don't know how. It's like one of those things when you say, "Good morning, how are you?" But you keep walking. You never stop to see actually how that person really is. You never actually give that person a chance to say, "Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for asking me. How are you?" We're so redundant with that these days. "Good morning, how are you?" And we keep going. It's just something that we do in passing. But if we actually stopped to see how that person was, some people are actually crying out for help. Some people want help, but they don't know how to ask for it. Some people want you to take them by the hand and say, "I know you're going through this. I don't really know how to help you, but I want to help you." Some people want you to say, "You know what? I know something's wrong. I don't really know what's wrong, but can I give you a hug?" A simple hug that'll make a person open up. You never know what that could stop. You never know what that could do to a person. Some people are crying out for us to help them, but we're so busy. We're so caught up in ourselves. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty myself. I'm guilty. I know how I felt when I was going through situations. There were people around me, but I felt so alone because I couldn't tell them what I was really going through. For one, some of them really didn't want to hear it. Two, I just didn't really want to tell some of them my business. But I needed to get it out. I really needed to get it out. And it caused me to go into, it caused me to get lost in my thoughts. And I started wondering, when I was on the other side of that, if I felt this way, how many other people felt that way? If I knew that I was going through something, how many other people around me are going through? They just don't know how to tell someone. Now, one of the major things that really helped me get through what I was going through was prayer. Was fasting and prayer. I just have to really be honest about that. That really got me through because I was already in an isolated state. But when I really prayed about the situation and I really fasted about the situation and I really got into the word, that helped me. And then God led me to people that I needed, that I could talk to. It was really only one or two, but I was able to get it out. It's not the fact that I really wanted them to talk back. I just needed to get out of my own head. I just needed to get out of my own mind. I just needed to get it off of my chest because it was weighing me down. It was causing me it was causing me stress. It really was. I couldn't work it out enough because it wasn't relieving. I could not um, I could not listen to enough music to get it off of me because it was causing me, it was stressing me out. My weight started going up, my weight started going down. I was having headaches, migraines, because I was holding on to something that I needed to release. It caused me to be so lonely, so isolated, so separated that it was making me sick. And when I started to release that, to just tell a little bit of what I was going through, I noticed that it started making me feel better. When I was directed to the right people. And that's what I want to make sure that I reiterate. There is someone out there that finds someone that you can talk to. Find someone that would just be an ear. It's not all the time that you need someone to talk that to you, that you need someone to lead you on the right path. Sometimes it's just being a listening ear. If we can be a listening ear for others without being judgmental, without always having something to say, without being so busy, because we get so busy, we get so caught up in our own lives that we don't think about what other people are going through. However, when we go through, we want someone else to be there. So I want to make sure that I really hone in on the fact that there is help out there. There are resources out there. There are people out there. If you don't have the resources or you don't know the resources, please feel free to inbox me or comment below, and we can find the resources. Now, it's not saying that something is wrong with you. Life happens. We all go through something. So being there for others the way we would want someone to be there for us. And again, like I say, I'm guilty of it. I have a friend, a close friend that I met in training, and we were going down the same path, we were going down the same path. We live in different states. And that friend lost a child. I should have been there more for that friend than what I actually was, because I don't know what I would do if I lost mine. I can only imagine what my friend was feeling on the inside. I can only imagine what that friend and their spouse were actually going through at the end of the night, being stuck in their own thoughts, being stuck in their own feelings, being caught and trapped in their own mind. People may know what they were going through, but do you actually understand? I recently lost a cousin, and his mother is my cousin. We are the same age. I can only imagine what she's going through. I'm in a place right now where I can really intercede for her. I can really pray for her. But do you imagine in the midnight hour when no one else is around what those parents are actually going through? What those parents are actually dealing with? That's hard. Do you really know what that person that was abused or molested, when they are all alone, when no one else is around them, when the room is quiet, when they're stuck all alone, when they're lost in their own thoughts, what they are really going through? And that same person walks in a crowded room, a room full of people, and on the outside, that person looks okay. But what is that person feeling like on the inside? Being all alone in a crowded room, stuck in their thoughts. It's not just the title. It's not just the topic. It's really happening. It's really going on around us. People are really dealing with these issues. And not just this one issue or these two issues. People are really going through. We do have to be better. We do need to be better. And be mindful of the situations that are going on around us. I mean, I could call some people and I could just really apologize and just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I wasn't there and I should have been there. We all know someone that has gone through something and it's hard for them to come back from. I remember going through a situation, and when I went through that situation, I remember looking at the individual and I told them, I can understand now how people take their lives because you all are not helpful. That was a reality check for me. People are alone. People are going through. People are needing help. And a lot of us just go on day to day like everything is okay. That's not the case. Now, there's nothing new under the sun. I will say that. So if you've gone through something, like the old people say, everything that you've gone through, somebody else already went through it also. But how quickly do we forget when we get through it that we've gone through it also? And when we see someone else going through, we should be more adamant to help those people. We should be more willing to wrap our arms around someone and help them. We should be more willing to just be a listening ear. There is, several things. I know someone that was battling with a form of cancer, and I can only imagine for that person's life to take a total 180, not necessarily a 360, because the 360 will put them back in where they were in the beginning, but a 180 to go from vibrant and well and healthy and not care in the world into being just completely dependent on others, losing a limb, having to have a leg amputated, not being able to move around like they would normally move around, the loss of hair. And, yes, the person is thankful to be alive, but have we ever stopped to think about what that person is going through because their life has changed? That's a form of loneliness. And when we see people get depressed and we see them get oppressed and we see them get weighed down and we're not doing anything to help, that's a problem. There is someone there that can help. Oftentimes, the individuals that are going through this form of loneliness or this form of isolation, they don't feel like they're worthy of the help. It's really an illness. And because we don't talk about it, because we don't think about it that way, it tends to get overlooked. But it's more common than we would actually think. It is common in young adults. It's really a high number of young adults right now that are suffering from some form of loneliness, some form of isolation. They're dealing with so much, dealing with society and not knowing how to necessarily cope. They want to be themselves, but they're battling all of the peer pressure. Then we have our adolescent stage. They're coming into their own, but it's so much going on. The world is evolving. You have Love and Hip Hop this. You have this reality show. You have that reality show. They have the things that they're dealing with at home. Mom has issues. Dad have issues. They have issues. Everyone has issues, but no one is getting help. So now everyone is lost in their thoughts. You have a family full of people that are isolated, that are secluded, that are disconnected. You have before this pandemic, people would sit at the table eating dinner and everyone had their phones out. No one is paying attention to each other. So mom and dad are going through what they're going through, but they're not paying attention to each other. They're not talking to each other. The children are watching that, even though they have their own thing going on at school. They're having this problem. Now their grades are starting to slip. The mothers and the fathers may not be as productive on their job. Loneliness is taking them down. The isolation, the secludedness is really taking them down. They have nowhere to turn because they're not turning to each other. And everyone is trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to look this way on the outside, and you're living above your means, and you're doing this and you're doing that to look the part, but in the inside, you're really not up to par. That's a problem. That's a real issue. That's what we're dealing with today. You know, even in the pandemic, the domestic violence rate has, I have to go back and look at my stats, but I think it has doubled during the pandemic because people are now, they were stuck with each other. Because we were mandatory to be quarantined, we had to be around each other. Well, just imagine that woman that was at work, working a double shift just because she was trying to stay away from home because her husband was an alcoholic, or he was this or that, and he was abusive. So she was working later, so she didn't have to be at home. And just imagine with the pandemic, and we all have to be at home. Now she can't run from that. She has nowhere to turn. He's agitated because something is causing him to drown his problems in alcohol or drug use. And now he's stuck. He's stuck in his own thoughts. He can't get it out. He's dealing with something, no telling what he's dealing with, because especially in this day and age, as the black man, what the black man is dealing with, or what any man is dealing with for that matter. Some men have a problem with their spouse making more money than them. Some men have a problem because they have they settled for something and they're not where they want to be. So they're taking it out on the children. So now the children are being abused, and the spouse is being abused, and the husband is drug abusing and alcohol abusing. And that's a problem. So now the domestic violence rate has skyrocketed because we're not talking. Because we're stuck in our own minds. And that woman that was abused, she wants to talk. She wants to be able to tell someone, but she can't because she's afraid of what people would think about her. She's afraid of what people would say. So she's sitting at work in her office with her Mac on. It's a little cakey today because she may be covering up a black eye. Or she has bruises somewhere in her body that no one else can see. So she may be wearing long sleeves, saying she has on long sleeves because it's cold in the office, but she's actually covering up her wounds. She's actually covering up the bruises on her body. Then you have your children that are getting into this and getting into that and running with this crowd, and you think it's the wrong crowd, but that crowd is the only crowd that's showing that child love. They may not be doing the right things, and they may start smoking, they may start drinking, but they're like-minded. They're surrounding themselves with people that are like them. They're all going through something. They're telling each other, but they're not telling the right people. That's a problem. That's loneliness. That's what they're dealing with. You had this young lady that she was abused in college. She don't want to tell anyone because someone may think it was her fault. Because he's on the football team or he's on the basketball team and he's popular and this or that. Or she got caught in the wrong place. She went to a party and they did this to her. They did that to her. And now she's stuck in that, and it's in her mind because she can't tell anyone what really happened to her because how they'll look at her. She can't tell her parents because her parents may think that she brought this on herself, and her friends may think she brought this on herself, or other people may think that she brought this on herself, and they may reject her. They may turn her away and nobody will believe her. And because this person is, the popular one, she'll be shunned on. She'll be looked down on. And it's not just females. It's the males also. Someone sexually assaulted him, but he's a man. He's a young man. He can't really tell what happened to him because what people would think. His parents may not like what he's going through. You may have some that are bisexual, homosexual, lesbian. They can't really tell what's going on with them because their parents may not accept. Now, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with the lifestyle. I have my own beliefs. Everyone has their own beliefs. What I'm simply saying is, it's not right. It's not right. Whatever your child goes through is not meant for you to turn your back on your child, because that could be the very thing that caused your child to take their life. And then we have the shouldas, and then we have the couldas, and then we have the I wish I had to talk to them. I wish had not separated myself from him. I wish I had not disowned her. I wish I had not done this. I wish I had not done that. But if we communicate, if we get out of our own way, if we drop our pride and actually talk, if we let the other person know, if you get into a relationship and you let that person know during the friendship, no matter what happens, we're going to keep the line of communication open. Before we lose us, we're going to make sure we talk about it. No matter what your child does, you let that child know, I don't care if it's good, I don't care if it's bad, I don't care if it's ugly, you can come to me. I don't care if I don't agree with it, you can still come to me. We'll work it out. Because one thing about it, we're losing them. We're losing them. They're secluding themselves. They're isolating themselves. They're becoming more and more lonely. They're around you, but they're not around you. Their bodies and their physical may be around you, but their mind is somewhere else. And when they get so far gone, that causes them to disconnect, and they start taking their lives. They start doing things to harm themselves. If they don't take their lives by suicide, they may drink themselves to death. They may overdose themselves to death. It's the same thing. It's still a form of suicide. It's the exact same thing. They maybe they didn't cut their wrist, or maybe they didn't take an excessive amount of pills, but they drank and they drank and they drank. And it's not just for children. This is not just for teenagers. This is not just for adolescents and young adults. This is for parents, adults, seasoned adults as well. Drinking your problems away, or attempting to drink your problems away. Because we get lost in ourselves and we can't talk to anyone, or we feel like we can't talk to anyone. It's time out. It's time out for that. Now is the time to communicate. Now is the time to open our mouths. Now is the time to help someone else. Now is the time to be open. Now is the time to unmute. Now is the time to be heard. Now is the time. We're losing too many people when we can help them. We have the resources, yet suicide is running rampant. We have the resources, and there are counselors everywhere you turn. We have the resources. There are life coaches everywhere you turn. We shouldn't lose a child. No one should suffer from depression. No one should suffer from anxieties. No one should suffer from loneliness. No one should suffer drug use, drug abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, because we have the resources. There is help. It is our responsibility to help each other, because if we don't help us, who else is going to help us? And if you have gone through something, if you have been through something, it is your responsibility to help someone else, especially someone else around you, especially someone else in close proximity. Let them know that they can come to you. Be approachable. We have to learn how to stop being so judgmental. We do. There's enough going on in the world. Someone has to be a light for others. Someone has to let them know that, I'm here, regardless of what's going on. If it's just one person, even with the segment, Unmuted, if I only help one person, I've done what I'm supposed to do. It may not get what every other show gets, but I'm here to let someone know that you're not alone. I'm here to let someone know, even in that crowded room where you're alone in your thoughts, there is one person that will help. And if I don't know it, I'll find someone that does. If you need a listening ear, we can get you a listening ear. If you need advice, we can get you the advice. If you just need a hug, we can get you a hug. We can get you several hugs. If you just need to simply be around someone because you're going through and you don't even know what it is you're going through. And that's the problem with so many people today. People are having issues and they don't even know what the issue is. They just know they are not okay. I don't feel right. I'm good, but I'm not good. That's a problem. Because if you're good, but you're not good, you're not good. We have to be that for someone else. I feel that if you know that you're on the other side of something, if you know you've gone through something, be that to someone else. I always pray, Lord, bless me to be a blessing to someone else. And I used to always pray that, and I used to think of finances all of the time. All of the time I would think of finances. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, I don't necessarily just have to bless someone with finances. Everyone doesn't need finances. Now, we love finances, but everyone doesn't need finances. Someone just needs someone to be there for them, to know that they care, to know that they're going to listen, to know that they're going to be there regardless. I can call you. It may be late at night. You can call me. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. Verbally talk about it, but I'll text. I've handled so many issues via text. People talk about text messaging these days. They really do talk about text messaging, but I've helped a lot of people just by text conversations, praying for them and then sending them that text, that prayer, going back and forth. We probably didn't have a phone conversation, but we text that conversation back and forth. They got it out. They got that out of there. They got out of their own mind. They got out of their own head. If you look around in your own family, someone is dealing with something and you overlooked it. Not saying you purposely overlooked it, but we get so caught up in our own situations that we tend to overlook what someone else is going through. We're not perfect. None of us are. But we do need to be better. We do need to be better for others. What we do now is what our children will do later. We want to set a better example for them, because we're not just losing a generation, we're losing generations. We want to be better for others. We want to do better for others. So I always try to give resources, counselors, life coaches. If you just need a friend, someone to talk to, send me a message, comment below if you feel comfortable with that. But I will make sure I come back and I drop the resources. So watch the comments on the section, on the segment, and I will make sure I send drop some resources to some counselors, maybe some hotlines, whatever you may need. If you need a big brother, if you need a big sister, someone, any particular resource that you may need. A closed mouth don't get fed. That's what I've always been told. So if you want the help, someone is trying to get you to help. Just ask. Just ask. One of the scriptures today was, asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knocking the door will be open unto you. Now is the time. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Unmuted. I know often these topics are not the most popular topics and topics that everyone really wants to talk about, but I feel that these topics are needed. I usually try to, whatever is really in my spirit to do, I really try to stick with that and do what I'm told to do what I'm led to do. So if you know someone that may need to hear something that I had to say today, please feel free to share the segment. As a matter of fact, if you don't even think you know anyone, just share it anyway, because you never know who's following your social media page that may be going through, or who they know that's going through, and they may need to hear something that's been said on today. Again, I'll make sure that I link some different resources, counselors, life coaches, different things into the comments. So if you want to watch the replay, come back and watch the replay. Check the comments later, probably in another day. Feel free to go back and watch previous episodes. I also put some different links into the different in numbers and whatnot, websites, into the comments of previous episodes. I still have more to upload into the comments, but I want to make sure that I give a solution, a resolution to a problem. The problem tonight is loneliness, being all alone in a crowded room, lost in your thoughts. That crowded room could be your home, around your family, and you feel that no one is understanding what you're going through. That crowded room could be your job on a day-to-day basis. If you're back at work and you're going through and you're screaming for help on the inside, but no one sees what you're going through because they're looking at your exterior and have no idea what's going on in your interior. That crowded room could be church, when we were in church and we were in church services and you're crying for help and you're on the altar and you're praying and you're going through, but you need something and you don't know what you need. Everyone sees you on the outside, but they don't see you because they don't realize what you have going on in the inside. Your crowded room could be any room. It could be your unit if you're military. It could be anywhere. It could be a grocery store, and you're walking around the grocery store and you're feeling down and you're feeling depressed, and there's people all around, but you feel alone. You have tunnel vision. All you see is you and your situation, what you're going through, and you feel like you have nowhere to turn and no one to turn to. But there is hope and there is help. And that is what Unmuted is about. Unmuting yourself, getting it out. It may not feel good, but it's for you good. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unmuted. My name is Felicia Franklin. I am your host, your moderator. Again, please like, please share. Even if you don't think it applied to you, it applied to someone else. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, you have any comments, please feel free to put them below or inbox. I do check those. I try to go back and respond where I need to respond. Thank you, and we'll see you the same time, the same station on next Thursday. Have a great rest of your evening, and have a great day on purpose.